You can't start the car. Johnny has the keys.
Hello, hello, hello out there in podcast land. You have reached Johnny Has the Keys, where we talk about horror movies and science fiction films and those key elements that lift those films above the average genre fare into a special place in our Christmas little hearts. How are you doing, Mr. Horton?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you, Jim?
It's Christmas. Well, not quite, but it feels like it, doesn't it?
It does. It does. Wait, I should change my virtual background so I'm more in a Christmassy spirit.
There you go. Look at that. It's like something out of Mannheim Steamroller.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah, it's a merry COVID little Christmas.
A merry COVID Christmas.
Oh, wow. So how's it been going? What's going on in your world this week?
Good. Not been doing a lot. I've been adding a lot of stuff to my list of stuff. I've got to watch season 2 of The Boys because I haven't finished it yet.
I never saw that.
Oh, you should watch it. Pretty good. It's a dark superhero series with lots of gore. I got to put Away on because they say it's really good science fiction. It's kind of like Mission to Mars kind of story with Hilary Swank as the lead.
What? You're talking about what's it called again?
It's called Away.
Okay.
And it's basically the story of a wife, mother, astronaut who commands a team to Mars, and she has to just go to her family and say, "Yeah, I'm going to be gone for 3.5 years, so going to Mars and back."
I heard someone on a podcast the other day talking about it, and that it was pretty good.
Getting good reviews and really good things. So it's on my list. And then a suggestion that came to us to add to our movie list for maybe next year. I told you about it was from Lee, our friend of ours, who said we should do Buckaroo Banzai and add that to our list. So if fans are interested, maybe they could say yes or no to that particular movie.
I don't remember much about that movie. It came out in the 80s. Was it Peter Weller, the lead? Who was the lead?
Yeah, Peter Weller. Yep.
I just remember it being crazy.
It's
like
aliens from the 8th dimension or something like that.
Kind of like The Fifth Element, maybe?
Well, but to me, just from what I vaguely remember, Fifth Element to me is a lot more cohesive than Buckaroo Banzai.
I thought so too.
Pretty much out there. It's kind of like David Lynch doing, science fiction.
Okay.
But maybe we add it to our list. And
obviously we've got room for it.
Yeah.
We've only got 5 pages, so we could just throw another
details.
one on there.
What about you? What have you been doing?
I started thinking about a more current topic, and then I realized, I haven't hit on this, and it's been going on since the beginning of the fall, so I should probably go back a little bit and talk about The Walking Dead. Imagine that, zombies.
What? Yeah.
There's been some crazy news with The Walking Dead. It has been announced that the season 10 has been extended 6 episodes, and then they're doing a supersized 11th season that is going to be the final season. The new people, I guess, would be in despair, so they already announced that Daryl and Carol are going to get a spinoff, which is
I read that, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a road theme kind of thing because he's already got that docuseries on the road with Norman Reedus where he's on a motorcycle in different places. So I'm assuming they're just going to go to different towns, kind of like Star Trek, wagon train to the stars, but wagon train to the States
with zombies.
A lot of people have mixed feelings, but it doesn't surprise me. There's a million stories to tell in this world, and Kirkman ended the comic. So it kind of seems a little appropriate to me that they say, we're going to end the show too.
Oh, I wasn't aware Kirkman ended the comic. I thought it was still going on.
No, it ended. I want to say the last issue came out last year. It was very
Okay.
surprising. There was no announcement. He just put it out and said, "This is the last issue." I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
"Damn, yeah." So we have that going on.
Well, so maybe in your sequel to The Dead Next Door, you could just have a cameo with Carol and Derek.
That would
they
be
just
cool.
ride
They
through
breeze through
Yeah.
up here at Lake Lanier.
town. Yeah, there you go.
And I explained to them that the lake is full of zombies. They walk around on the bottom of it like, catfish.
Like those Nazi zombies.
Yeah, like the Nazi zombies. So,
Yes. Chocolate.
then of course there's, but the thing is, I don't know if you obviously have not been paying attention to it, but they have branded it now as the Walking Dead universe. Anything you see on AMC commercial wise now says Walking Dead universe. They have Fear the Walking Dead, which just started its 6th season with, and I'm very hot and cold with this show. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's awful. But this episode was fantastic, and it turns out somebody that was in it.
Yes, Mike
kind of
Abbott.
blows my mind. Yeah, he played Isaac.
Yes.
Who essentially rescues Morgan, the lead character. And most of his scenes were with Lenny James, who is a fantastic actor. I don't know if you remember Morgan, because you've seen some of The Walking Dead. He's been
Stick
around
guy,
since, yeah.
Right? Yeah, okay.
And very first episode. He was in the very first episode.
And he taught, was it Rick that he was teaching how to stick fight? Or the episode that introduced him was somebody, Carol, or it was one of the leads that he was having to mentor, I guess, or whatever.
Well, there was an episode where they showed his mentor that taught him how to do that stick
Oh,
fight.
maybe that's it.
And then he also was teaching one of Ezekiel's sons how to do it, but that kid's dead now.
Oh,
Lots of people die on that show.
Not good teaching, obviously, but yeah.
So we have Fear the Walking Dead, and then I started not too long ago the Walking Dead World Beyond, which I have had mixed feelings about ever since I heard its announcement, because it feels like a young adult Walking Dead light.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been pleasantly surprised. It's actually a good story. I hope they continue and don't screw it up. But it's kind of like this. It's kind of like Stand By Me meets The Walking Dead. These kids live in this sheltered area that's like this city that's been rebuilt, and there's walls, and everything that's chaos is outside those walls. And these two sisters decide they're going to go find their father, who they know is in New York, and they sneak out with 2 other kids, and it's their quest through the Deadlands to get to their father. So the story alone, to me, is a great concept. I could see why they went with it. We'll just see how well they do it.
It sounds like a game.
Kind of.
I mean, it sounds like a game. That's your precept, and then now your quest is you've got to go find Daddy.
Mm-hmm. It's Zelda.
Through the zombie wilderness,
Yeah.
Or, well, no, it could be even one of the, one of the newer games that are out there. Even Red Dead, all of those that have the whole quest orientation, but you've got an open world where you can go and do side missions and quests and stuff.
Wow, you know a lot more about games than I do.
I do like games. Yes.
Well, I will cut it short there. Just wanted to bring up the Dead because I haven't brought them up in a while. If anyone wants to talk zombies with me, they know I'm always willing and able to do so. You can reach out to me via email. And
if you haven't ordered that little book back there and read it, you need to do it, because that is awesome. It is awesome.
Thank you, David. Thank you for that plug.
I'm serious.
And I need to plug our friend Tyler over at 30 and Nerdy, who I did just record an episode with, and we talk a lot about zombies on that episode.
Okay.
So if y'all want to jump over and listen to the 30 and Nerdy podcast, you can find me over there. I'm not sure when that airs, but it may have already aired. So
nobody calls me to do sci-fi interviews. Because I'm too mean.
I'm so sorry. Let's put up a different background, like a really sad one.
Yeah, I should. I'm going to do it right now. No, just kidding.
So, David, I guess that it's not a really great segue, but it brings us to UFOs.
What? No, lonely guy who nobody wants to talk to because, yeah,
Oh,
that would
maybe.
be
Are you
me.
building a big mound in your house?
I am. Look at these mashed potatoes. Um, uh, yes, I actually, th- this is a great, great movie. This is one of my top 10 movies.
Oh,
And
okay.
I love this movie. It's one of my favorite Spielberg films. We are going to talk today about 1977's Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which even on the version I watched, which was the original theatrical version, we'll get into versions, I'm sure, as we talk about the history,
Yeah.
but the original theatrical version just says Close Encounters. It doesn't say of the third kind. It just says Close Encounters. I thought that was interesting.
So which came first, the chicken or the egg? I don't know.
It was always touted as Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It was
That's
always,
what I
thought. That was in the poster, very iconic poster too, by the way, just that road going to the into the distance and just the glow at the end of it kind of thing. But basically, I mean, just as a little, brief synopsis sort of thing for those of you who haven't seen it, if you haven't, go watch it right now, then come back. But basically, the whole movie deals with two parallel storylines. One is with this government group, this government agency called the Mayflower Project, and their investigation of these desperate instances all over the world of UFO sightings or something strange happening or returns of vehicles from the past and that sort of thing. And simultaneously, the story of Roy Neary, who's just a power lineman who has a close encounter with a UFO, and it becomes an obsession for him, and how he intermingles with another single mother whose son has been abducted by aliens. And all of these people come together in this very iconic encounter at Devil's Tower in Wyoming, where they actually do get visited by aliens. What did you think of this movie? I mean, I will go off forever on this movie because I love it. But so you should.
I'm really glad that I sat down and watched it again. I have not seen it since the first time I saw it.
What? You don't watch it like every other year? What are you what?
I did not see this movie in a theater. I, very similarly to Rosemary's Baby and The Exorcist, saw this when it was a television movie, and I want to say, for the television movie, instead of being cut like the horror films, they added extra footage for the television version. So that was the first version I saw, and in all honesty, I want to say it kind of bored me. So I have not watched it since. So the other day, I had some free time. I hopped in bed, propped my pillows up, turned the TV on, and I saw that both versions were on Amazon, or at least two versions, the original and director's cut or something.
Director's cut, not special edition.
Well, what I did was I said, I'm going to watch the original. Fuck this.
Yes.
I want to see the one that was in the theaters in 1977, just like Star Wars. And
Yes.
I watched it and I loved it. And I was like, this is nowhere near the boring movie I remember seeing on TV that time.
No, because they padded it too much.
Right. They did. They put too much special effects or whatever it was, music in it. And I like this short 2-hour version of it.
Yes. I think it's 2.7.
Yeah,
2 hours, 7 minutes,
it's not long.
like that.
It's not real long.
No, but it's okay. Well, let's talk about that while we're there. So
Sure.
So what happened historically? Because I think that's it's definitely a key to later filmmakers, including Lucas, Spielberg himself, several others, De Palma, But what happened was basically Spielberg did this movie, and one of my first notes when I rewatched was this was only his third movie.
Yeah.
And when the credits rolled, it said Columbia, and I thought, what? Columbia? Spielberg is always Universal. He's always Universal, but no, he's not. He had just done Jaws, but then he did Close Encounters for Columbia, which was failing. They were going bankrupt and were afraid. As a matter of fact, they tried to pull the plug on this project several times. But anyway, they did it, opened the same week as Star Wars A New Hope, ended up becoming this huge blockbuster, revitalized the whole Columbia
I did read that. I read that they were like counting on this movie to save them, and it did so
and it did so much so that they gave him a bunch of money because they rushed him. He was supposed to open in 78, but they said, we will be bankrupt by then. We'll be out of business. So can you open it in 77? So he said, sure. So he opened at the very end of 70. By the way, November 16th was the release date. So we may be near there when this podcast airs.
We're in December.
We're in December,
Remember?
so
yes, you have Christmas trees behind you, David.
Well, but I have those up right after Halloween.
No, you
Just
don't.
kidding.
You always
No, I
chastise me about it.
No, I don't. No, I don't. You do. I do not. But Christmas season does not begin July 5th, Tim. I have to tell you. No, but anyway, so he opened in November. It was a huge blockbuster. Did great. And so much so that the studio then went, okay, we know we rushed you, but we've made gajillion dollars. Now do your version. So he re-edited it all. Came out with a second version, which he called the Special Edition, which was re-released into theaters and came out on videotape and everything else. A few years later, he didn't like that version. So he re-edited it all again and did the director's cut. And I
think he's come out and said basically he didn't need to do any of it now, right?
Correct. He came out and said, no, I should have just left it the original, which, please, I wish George Lucas would learn that too, but he never did. People are still begging. That's a huge key for me. People are still begging for original theatrical versions of the original Star Wars trilogy. And you can't find them because Lucasfilm won't release them.
Which we did for our last Christmas season. That's funny. We're doing this Christmas season, and we did Star Wars last Christmas season.
Yeah. So there was, there's all this history with it changing and changing the edits and everything else. But I agree with you. I think the theatrical version is my favorite, even though I do like in the special edition when they go to the desert and they see the ship, in the middle of the desert, the one from the Bermuda Triangle. I thought that was kind of a cool thing. And I like the bathroom scene, which is in the special edition, but it's not in the director's cut and or the theatrical version. So we're going to go off our notes of the theatrical version, of course, because it's the one that everybody saw when it was a blockbuster. It's everyone that hopefully has imprinted with people as a child, whatever. Just a little production history. So the movie was written by Spielberg. He is credited as the writer of it, although a big key for us.
It's a huge key. It's another one of those weird paradoxes of our season.
Yes. Which is what?
It was written originally by Paul Schrader, who we talked about doing Cat People, the 1982 version. That was he directed that, as well as writing several Scorsese pictures.
Yes, and he wrote it, but based on the rewrites that Spielberg did, he decided to take his name off of it, not in anger, just said, you deserve the credit, you've changed a lot of it. It went under the working title of Watch the Skies.
Watch the Skies.
Which is another key from
Thing from Another World.
Thing from Another World, which is actually a line in the movie, by the way. Early on, they say, watch the skies, kids. But it's basically Spielberg's dream child all the way through it.
I think Dreyfuss mentioned that he talked about it all the time while they were filming Jaws.
Yes, because he had done a short film when he was in high school. The way we used to do films and everything else. He did a film called Firelight when he was in high school, and his dad actually showed it at the local movie theater. And after the cost of the movie and showing everything else, Spielberg actually turned a profit of $1. So his very first movie he ever showed, 1964 or 65, somewhere in there, he made a profit of $1. And that was actually a story about people following lights in the sky. So he's always been, this has a lot of Spielberg all the way through it, from the single mom, abandoned dad, secret
Kids.
government force, kids giving great performances, fantasy becoming a part of reality. All of the early Spielbergs, I mean, it's all tied together in this movie.
Yeah, there's elements of this movie that look like other movies he either directed or produced subsequently. Poltergeist comes to mind for some reason.
E.T.
Yeah, E.T. for sure.
I mean, so many. So I think that it's
Goonies. Explorers.
But it's definitely a Spielberg brainchild all the way through. With everything, and he had great support and great people, which we can go into when we talk about production. But, where do we want to go? Do you want to talk about cast first? Do you have any cast for this?
I do have several casting notes, actually quite a bit. If you want to go there,
yeah, we'll go there and then just kind of go through it.
I did have a couple of other writer notes on the background, though. Spielberg said nothing in his life has been more difficult than editing the last 35 minutes of this film.
You know why? I know it.
I do. Actually, yes, I do.
Okay.
Because he flipped it.
Yes.
And directed it to the score instead of letting the score.
Correct. John Williams wrote the music and completed it first before the film was through. And so Spielberg literally edited the last part of this movie to the music.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, but it also gives it a really cool feel. I mean, one of my notes in the watch notes is I love the lack of dialogue, or the smattering of dialogue they have, but the incredible orchestration in the last 20 minutes of the movie. Really good.
Yeah. Oh, and then also Ray Bradbury declared it as the greatest science fiction film ever made.
Probably wouldn't go there, but it's definitely great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he could have said that in 1977. We don't know when he said it. So.
Right.
So.
And we talked about, just while we're on production, we talked about other things about it. It was at a budget of 20 million or so and made over 300. It was all released in 70 millimeter everywhere. One of Spielberg's insistence was that it be released that way. It was he had help, like I said. John Williams was brilliant. The cast is great. Douglas Trumbull did the special effects. He also did 2001. He did Blade Runner. We've talked about him before on the podcast. Another key we have is Carlo Rambaldi.
Right.
He did the puppets.
Yeah, he was definitely a key.
And I think all of that
Deep
combined, I always forget his name. His cinematographer, Zygmunt, Vilas Zygmunt, I think, is the cinematographer that Spielberg used, who was brilliant because all the lighting in this is just amazing. The realistic lighting as well as the fantasy lighting of it. And I didn't verify this. This will be my last little production. I didn't verify this, but I did, I think, read in a novel or a biography once of Spielberg that he did not take a salary for this movie because he knew the studio was in such trouble. He took like 5 points of the gross, and it ended up netting him like tens of millions of dollars because he didn't take a salary. So because it was a brainchild of his anyway, and he really wanted to invest in it.
Well, and then we've talked about this with Star Wars. Him and Lucas had that famous bet or whatever on which one would do better, and they would each get a percentage of each film, and they still do get a small percentage of each film because they're friends.
Pays to have friends,
Yeah. If we're going to move on to casting,
sure.
Money does play into that a bit. Roy Neary, the lead, is Richard Dreyfuss, obviously from Jaws. He played Hooper.
Mm-hmm.
He heavily lobbied for the part. He had already done Jaws and I think The Goodbye Girl. but the studio did not want to pay him $500,000 because we were just talking. The studio didn't have any money.
They didn't have any money.
They offered the script to Pacino, to Jack Nicholson, and to Gene Hackman. Pacino wasn't interested. Nixon thought that any actor in this movie would be overwhelmed by the special effects, which turned out not to be true, really. But
it would be intimidating without seeing them. You didn't see any of the effects.
Correct.
So, yeah.
And then Hackman turned it down because he was in a troubled marriage and could not spend that much time outside of Los Angeles location shooting.
I don't think any of them would have been right either, though.
I have a special place in my heart for Richard Dreyfuss. I've heard he's an asshole, but I still have a special place in my heart for him. I think he's great.
Me too. I love him in everything he's ever done.
Yeah, he's an amazing actor.
Yeah.
The studio suggested James Caan, but his agent wanted $1 million plus 10% of the gross.
Oh my God. Okay, well then no.
So they went back to Dreyfuss and they cut his deal back just a little bit, and he became immortalized in this part, and that's how he ended up playing the part.
Oh yeah. So. I was surprised that his career didn't go greater, just because all of the films I've ever seen him do, I've loved him in. He's he was a Tom. To me, he was a Tom Hanks before Tom Hanks. He was like that Everman. That's a key for me. He was like a Yaterman kind of thing. He could be the absent father, the boyfriend, the professor,
I see that, especially in The Goodbye Girl, because that's just that. That's a comedy, the romantic comedy equivalent of something like Sleepless in Seattle, or you know what I mean? Yeah, I see that.
And he can do the fantastical like this, or he could do the character that's that kind of quirky, redeeming, like like Hooper in Jaws. I thought
you're all gonna die.
Yeah, I know that you are going to ignore this particular problem till it swims up and bites you in the ass.
However, Spielberg, I guess, was not sold on him immediately because he approached some people. The people he approached were Steve McQueen, Dustin Hoffman, and also Gene Hackman. And then I've got, again, that Jack Nicholson was considered. McQueen turned the role down because he said he wasn't able to cry on film. I thought that was interesting.
I don't think Steve McQueen's ever cried. But.
Does it mean he can't or won't?
Probably can't. Probably can't do it on cue.
Well, that is a hard thing, but there are tricks for that.
Well, yeah. A little menthol spray right in the eye works.
Right, or cut an onion, something. I don't know.
Yep.
Okay, Claude Lacombe was a Francis Truffaut.
Truffaut.
Truffaut, is that how you say it? I'm not sure.
Francois Truffaut.
There were several other French people up for this film that I don't know, including Philippe Noiret, Jean-Louis Trintignant. I'm butchering this, I'm sure, people. Just bear with me. And Lino Ventura. But also Gerard Depardieu was considered. I did not even know he was around then.
But what was he, 12?
He would have been young.
Yeah,
sure.
I don't. There is such. Okay, so we'll pause there. I really like Francois Truffaut's performance in this.
Yeah,
and I've read a lot where he said he was disgruntled on the set. Lots of production stories with him saying, that he realized one helicopter shot costs like $125,000, and he was saying I could do an entire movie for that amount.
Right.
Spielberg was so proud to show him the big set in Mobile, the huge, large set, and he didn't even acknowledge it because the whole thing was so beyond his scope of filmmaking in France, that he couldn't even believe it was a set, sort of thing.
You're hitting on something that is yet another key within a key, and it's a micro key. But I mean, we just did Rosemary's Baby with Roman Polanski doing a big budget movie with an indie director in it, John Cassavetes. Now we're doing a big budget movie directed by Steven Spielberg with Francis Truffaut in it, who was also a director of small movies in Europe.
Yeah.
That is bizarre how this happens.
But we're going to have to do like a retro at the end of this season about all of the
We'll never remember it all.
You know, it's
just
crazy.
Very, very twisty. Yeah.
But Truffaut is credited as saying he complimented Spielberg on pulling the actor out of him. And he actually ended up acting in a couple of his own movies later on as well. I think he brings such, first of all, the concept of Spielberg saying, I want a foreigner to start this movie and I want a foreign feel to it, sort of thing, was great to make it global. And then Truffaut's performance seems so impactful. I love his smile at Neary at the end. And the way he just kind of does a little with his head looking up at the mothership, kind of like, go on, you know you want to. And his last line in the movie is, I envy you, Mr. Neary. You know, and I went, yeah, that is this. Because, I mean, how many of us have felt that way? You know, I mean, but he's, you know, that opening shot is also, well, we'll get to that in a minute. Sorry, we're still on casting. Truffaut does a great job.
He does. Okay, we'll move on to Ronnie, who is Roy's wife. Was played by Terry Garr, who I've always loved since Young Frankenstein.
Hey, I loved her before that. You know when I loved her? I loved her in Star Trek. That's when I loved her.
Oh, that's right. She was in a Star Trek.
She's in Assignment Earth with Gary Seven.
That's right.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I was going to point something out to you about Spielberg in a moment, too. She was in Tootsie. And the only other thing I have is that Amy Irving auditioned. She would have been on the scene at the time. She was also the first Mrs. Spielberg. But obviously she did not get it. Terry did. This woman, I don't know a lot about. But the Melinda Dillon, who played Jillian Guyler, she was in Magnolia and that iconic Christmas Story movie about the BB gun.
Yeah, Christmas Story. She was the mom.
She was cast. I love this though, as a suggestion of director Hal Ashby, who did Harold and Maude, which is another movie I love.
Yes.
But Spielberg, he had heard that Spielberg was having a difficult time, and he had just finished a movie called Bound for Glory with her in the cast and liked her so much that he sent Spielberg a couple of reels, and upon seeing it, Spielberg hired her, and she won an Oscar, didn't she? I think, yeah. Or she was nominated.
She was nominated.
Maybe she didn't win. I'm sorry. It's in my awards section.
Well, we'll get to that with the awards.
You're right. She was nominated. Sorry.
Again, I think she's brilliant in this. She is really, really good, and I could not believe she didn't do more in her career. Just like
because that's what I was saying. We're only knowing her from Magnolia and A Christmas Story, and this. There's surely more than that, but no, not really.
And other things, you know, the things she had to play. I mean, so much of this movie is her reaction to things without any dialogue supporting it. You know, how many times can you scream Barry? You know, emphatically, sort of thing. The whole scene with the abduction is awesome and scary and cool.
Yeah, it reminds me of War of the Worlds. Yeah,
that's a big key in that one. Yeah, but also, but I think Spielberg did that intentionally. That was an intentional key, in my opinion. But how do you also, you know, I think both of them and Spielberg probably struggled with that. I mean, this guy abandoned his family and went to this, you know, on this quest kind of thing. And then there's kind of a chemistry between him and Jillian, but it doesn't get romantic really ever.
They kiss at the end, but that's it.
There is one kiss, but that kiss is more of a goodbye. We share something, and it's a goodbye kind of thing. And they do that both really well. Yeah. Again, great casting.
It's also because neither one of them are movie star lookers, too. If it was, you know, Cary Grant and Grace Kelly, it would have been a totally different situation, probably. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Barry Guyler, speaking of which, was the little boy. He was played by Cary Guffey. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but Stanley Kubrick was so impressed by this performance, he wanted him to play Danny in The Shining.
Yes.
But there were scheduling conflicts. So he ended up casting Danny Lloyd instead. That's really all I have about Cary Guffey. I don't think he's done anything else.
No,
He's one of those kid actors that just was a kid actor and nothing else.
But was so good. I mean, Spielberg, I think in the biography about it, Spielberg even called him one shot or one take.
Yeah.
Because he was so good. And just, when we think Spielberg, I think a lot of people immediately think of Lloyd, E.T.
Oh, yeah. Kind of. I mean,
Danny,
it's not my favorite. I think of Jaws because I'm the scary guy, but yeah.
Right, but no, if I say Spielberg kids, most people think E.T. and Henry Thomas and that whole thing. But I always think of Cary Lloyd. Guffman, yeah, because he is his expressions are so.
I was thinking Danny Lloyd. No, Cary Guffman.
Cary Guffman. Because his expressions are so good, and his reactions to things work. I mean, does that entire kitchen scene, and you know what he's looking at and what he's seeing, and the way he, just because of the way his expression.
Yeah,
it works,
and he's excited too by it. He's
now, a lot
great
of that
kid excitement.
A lot of that I don't think is acting talent so much as it is director coaching.
Yeah,
because he was 4 when they.
He's
did
very
this?
little. Yeah.
Yeah, but the coaching worked really well. Even him saying goodbye at the end and all that was really good. But, yeah.
And then I have a few other notes. David Laughlin is another huge key because he is played by Bob Balaban, who we just saw in Altered States.
Altered States. Bob
another
Balaban,
movie
one of my
we
favorites.
just covered a few weeks back.
Phenomenon.
Yeah, and Balaban's been in a million different things, including Gosford Park.
Director and writer. He's done a bunch.
Been around forever. Yeah, he's one of those unsung heroes, kind of. He's an everyman actor, director kind of thing. Yeah.
Yep.
And
I liked him being. I thought it was very creative of Spielberg to make him be our surrogate into the government agency.
The government, yeah.
Because he is the new guy. He's the cartographer. He doesn't know what is going on. That he's great.
Yeah. Wild Bill was played by Warren J. Kemmerling. The only reason I wrote this down is because he was in Family Plot and Godzilla 1985.
Okay, well then he's got such cred.
He was in Alfred Hitchcock's notably worse movie and a Godzilla remake that I barely remember because that was a long time ago.
Yep.
And it was a remake at the time because it was, Godzilla had been around for 20 years by the time Godzilla 1985 had come out. So whatever. And then lastly, if you look really quickly, there are a few shots in there of Robert, who is Lance Hendrickson. He's got a few lines in there too. So Lance Hendrickson,
there's also
who is technically what we would normally refer to as a James Cameron in the James Cameron cabal of actors or whatever.
Yeah, cabal would be a good
but he was in a Spielberg movie before Cameron was on the scene.
Well, I've got some other casting, not like casting notes, but I mean, I guess performance or casting people. One of the kids, I think, is actually Richard Dreyfuss' son.
I think you're right.
One of the kids. I like the older man that witnesses the lights with him and then shows up at the government thing saying, "I saw Bigfoot once." That guy,
I love that scene. Great. That scene, their reactions in that scene are priceless because you're like, what are they gonna do?
And she's like, Terry's like laughing at him, and he's like, "Oh my God, this is not what I wanted this to be."
Right.
Thing.
Yeah, that's a funny scene.
I thought those were good. I liked the, and I meant to look him up. The guy that played the commander of the military portion of Mayflower, the one that was going, get these people out of here, and stood up.
I think that's Wild Bill, isn't it? Don't they call him Wild Bill?
I thought they called
that's
him,
not his name, but his nickname is Wild Bill.
it might have been, but I think they called him, I think he was, trying to remember, because he was something like a, I think that was it, because I thought he was a major or something, but maybe they call him Wild Bill. He was really good. I love the...
Well, they bill him as Wild Bill in the credits, but he was played by Warren J. Kemmerling.
Who I'd seen...
He looks a little bit like Mitch Pileggi.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah.
And like I said, he was in Family Plot, Godzilla. He was also in The Dark, which was another 80s horror movie.
Oh, yeah.
So he didn't do a lot. But yeah, he's the general.
There's a cameo. There's a cameo in the actual Visitation by J. Allen Hynek, who is actually the ufologist who created the term close encounter of the first, second, and third kind. And he's the pipe smoking guy with the beard who comes out. Thought he was good. I always, even from the first time I saw this in a theater, like you should have, but.
I can say the same about zombie movies, and I'm sure.
I'm sure. I
like 28 days later.
I like the guy that played who played the Moog organ, and found out he was actually a technician who was there to program the organ, and Spielberg liked him so much he hired him for the part. So I thought that was a cool little story.
Now, I think I did read where he had about 20 different variations of that 5-note sequence before he picked one, though, right?
No, they had like 100
or 100,
John Williams put together, and then he and Williams picked that one. Right.
But
then they wanted this huge organ, this Moog organ kind of thing for the set in Alabama. I think it was Alabama.
The set for the final scene was in Alabama.
It's in Mobile. Mm-hmm. Which is my last little casting thing. I love the dude that is the old guy, the old Southern guy who's part of the project, who's like, I need a topographical map of Wyoming right now. And then later on when they're having the thing, they're going, kick the tires on this thing. And he's got such great little Southern colloquialisms. But I can't remember his name or even the character name, but he was really good.
I'm hoping I'm not confusing him with Wild Bill. I don't think I am.
Because he was like the project leader guy. He was like the head of the...
No, okay, I am confusing him. The project leader was McNamara, J. Patrick McNamara.
But I don't think that's who I'm thinking about.
And then Wild Bill was the guy I was telling you about that was in those horror movies.
Okay, I'm thinking. I'll look him up real quick. Hold on.
Yeah, look at their pictures, and you'll be able to tell.
Merrill Connolly. Merrill Connolly is the actor, and he's just listed as team leader, not project leader.
Never mind. That he's way down. He wasn't in as much. Okay, because I may be confusing Wild Bill though with this project leader guy. I could be. Anyway.
Well, and as far as I know, he didn't do a lot. He wasn't cast a lot, but he's just very memorable in that character. It's got a lot of little Southern affectations and stuff.
And there are a lot of secondary parts in this movie, so it's easy to confuse them.
Oh, yeah. And there's a lot of one-liners, and there's a lot of authority figures that move and change. And
a lot of iconic faces that weren't known at the time that went on, like Lance Hendrickson, for example, or Terry Garr. Yeah.
The dude that says, this is a UFO, and it's my, my tire, my hubcap that I threw in my backyard, that guy went on to do movies and everything else. So yeah, great cast though. One of the, and I think we've linked a lot of keys to this cast. So.
We have, I would say, Bob Balaban, probably most.
Oh yeah.
For FX, I don't have a lot. I wrote down Carlo Rambaldi, which obviously he did E.T., but also Deep Red from Dario Argento. I will never let you forget that.
Mm-hmm.
La 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 la. If we go into awards territory, this film was an Oscar winner for cinematography and for special achievement sound effects editing. So there was some kind of special sound effects editing award they won.
That would make sense. Sound editing is brilliant, and the lighting is brilliant all the way through the cinematography. I read somewhere that the studio executives actually came down and threatened to fire Zsigmond because he was taking so long to light the set of, the big final set in Mobile. Mm-hmm. And Spielberg stood up for him and said, "No, you're not firing him, and he can take as long as he wants." And he did, and it worked. The lighting, little lighting choices. I remember when I watched this again the other day, of like just the grate in the floor, and there's a little shaft of light right here, and then there's a little shaft of light right where the screw is, so that it goes when it starts to unscrew. You see, just really good stuff. That shot alone of opening the door and
all the shots with the abduction. I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot.
Yeah, but even the lighting, like on Neary's face when he's looking at the mashed potatoes. The scene where he's building he's built essentially what he doesn't know yet, but it's Devil's Tower in his living room, and he's in the foreground on the phone, and right behind him they're doing the news report, and you're going, look, just look.
Right.
But the way you see his face, his expression when Ronnie's telling him that, the kids aren't coming back and, everything's over or whatever else. Mm-hmm. Just great lighting all the way through, not just the fantastical lighting, but the regular scene.
But we did mention in, I think it was Altered States, that there was lighting around doors in that movie that we immediately thought of Close Encounters. As soon as we saw it, we were like, that looks like Close Encounters.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That beam and shaft of light just coming through the keyhole and then moving, the shadow moving up kind of thing. It's just really, really iconic looks.
Right. Yeah, I really actually, with Dennis, he watched a little bit of it, like seeing all those old makes of cars from the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
When they're driving around. That was pretty, because it was a station wagon, wasn't it, that they were riding through the fields and stuff.
Oh, yeah. I actually call it, in my notes, I call it the family truckster, the one from Vacation.
So it won those two awards. It was nominated, and I'm sure this is the beginning, if you don't include Jaws, of the many snubs that Spielberg went through before he finally won one. It was nominated for supporting actress, Dylan, we mentioned. It was nominated for director, art direction, sound, editing, visual effects, and music. But it only won a special award for sound effects editing and cinematography. It was a Golden Globe nominee for picture, director, screenplay, and score. Did not win a single one.
Don't know why.
It was a BAFTA winner for production design, but a nominee for score, cinematography, director, film, editing, screenplay, sound, supporting actor, Dreyfuss, not Dylan. And then we've mentioned before the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror. It was a winner for director and music. It was a nominee for film, actor, actress, Dylan, writing, supporting actress, Garr, makeup, and FX. So I don't know much. We're going to have to look into this Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror, because they seem to be the ones that always get what me and you get about these films, it seems like. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And BAFTA is a close runner-up, but for some reason America is not onto this. And it is also included in a certain book, I think edited by... Yeah, I think it would be 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die.
See. Yes.
That's it.
And I think it's ironic that we did not look. I don't own a copy of that book. You don't.
I didn't even know it existed.
But we throw these lists together for these seasons and then suddenly realize, oh my gosh, we're right, because obviously someone has recommended this sort of thing.
Right. I mean, we should probably have Steven Schneider on his shows selling his
Yes.
book, on our show selling his book.
Right.
So maybe I'll reach out to him.
Um,
But he doesn't do just horror and sci-fi. He does everything.
Before like keys and stuff, are there scenes that stick out in this? You said you only saw it that one time and then I've seen it again.
There are scenes that stick out to me, and there's one scene that sticks out to me for the wrong reason. I don't like it, and it bothers me.
Okay. Ooh, I want to know this then.
We've talked about how sometimes Spielberg goes a little too far with music manipulation, and this is really not even in that category, but sometimes Spielberg just takes it a little too far. And I found Roy's,
you mean like getting
obsession.
Sappy almost, or
no, well, sappy would be something I would see more in movies for sure, but in this particular scenario it's slapstick, and it's all the shit with Roy throwing the shit through the window. I just don't like it. I think it's unrealistic. I don't buy it when he's shoveling the dirt in the window, and I don't know. I get it, it's supposed to be comic, he's obsessed, but to me it's a little too far. It's just
I would agree with that, actually. I do think, and even in the rewatch, I think that scene could have been just as easily done with a sliding glass door. When you just throw everything through the door
or throw the tools, maybe. I mean, I don't know. To me, a lot of that could have been done and was done with the neighbor, just seeing the weirdness through the window. It doesn't have to be extreme weirdness, but some weirdness. You know what I'm saying? I just think you went a little too far with that. It took me out of the movie, and you don't want to do that. Does that make sense?
Yes. Oh, yeah, definitely. Good point.
So that's a scene that a negative scene I would put in there. Now, there's plenty of positive scenes. The whole abduction scene with the kid, the whole scene with him on the railroad tracks with the truck.
Oh, yeah.
And the car pulling up behind him.
Yeah, and him doing the come on, and then it just rises up in the back.
Yeah, it's awesome. That's great stuff. And the stuff of X-Files. I mean, tons of X-Files keys, big time. So.
Oh, yeah. I've got X-Files keys in here. So, yeah. I think.
What scenes do you like? I mean, there's obviously great scenes. I mean, I love the scene where they're climbing Devil's Tower in the daytime.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I mean, visually very good. I like. I love it all, actually, but I guess I do like. I do like the scene at the table with the family because it makes me uncomfortable. But I like that scene.
The mashed potatoes?
Yeah. And there's a huge key in that to Jaws.
Big time.
And I think he did that on purpose, because Jaws had become so popular 2 years earlier, and I think this was a big deal. But that whole over-the-shoulder shot of the kid looking up at Dad, and then the way Dreyfuss does that breakdown of, I think you've noticed Dad's acting a little strange lately. That was really good. I like his scene with Truffaut and Balaban when he's being interviewed. And he's going, this means something. What does this mean? Why am I here? Who are you people? The way he just freaks out.
Yeah.
I think it's great. Again, I've said it before. I think the chemistry with him and Melinda Dillon is really good. Their kiss seems very sincere.
I love them on the lam when they're driving around in the station wagon, breaking out and breaking through. I love all that stuff.
And him visually all the way through the end, I think he only has 2 lines in like the last 20 minutes. After he says, I have to go down there, and she says, go, and they kiss, and he goes. I think his only line is, I don't know, when they ask him his blood type. The rest of the time, it's all his face and what he's seeing and visualizing.
Yeah,
Wow.
you just made me think of something totally unrelated. And it's a writing thing. It made sense for her to say, I know you need to go. I'm going to stay, because it
Right.
was like, it was a cinematic moment. But then I think Spielberg went, wait a minute, her kid's going to be there. I got to get her down there. So then she does go down there anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, ooh, I want this cinematic moment. How can I do it and still have her get down there? It's like, I got to
hmm
figure this out.
Um, but I think those are the major scenes. I mean, I've got, I love the helicopter shots or helicopters in anything, which is really cool. They had a lot of that in there. I like the fact that the first time we hear the theme, the theme song of it, not just the tones, but the theme of this movie, is when Barry is making the little mud pie on the hill, and Roy goes over and looks at it, and both of them stare, and then Jillian starts taking her fingernail down the side of it. And it's the first time you hear the theme.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say when the kid's playing it on the xylophone.
No, not the five notes, the theme themselves.
Okay.
The first time we hear the notes is the Indians.
Oh, you're right. You're right. It is. That's right. I forgot about that scene.
But again, why did that not get an Oscar for orchestration? Because those five tones alone, everybody in the world freaking knew.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody could hum that, even though you didn't know what the hell you were humming. Other trivia and stuff. I'm just looking through my notes to see if I forgot anything before we jump into keys. I've got yours. Great scene with the truck, one of my favorites.
Where they break out with the gas mask or whatever.
No, in the actual truck.
You're talking about on the railroad track. Yeah.
Playing the xylophone, great cut. I love the scene with the globe where shows the technology or lack thereof at the time, but he realizes these are coordinates, and they break into the office and steal the great big globe and have to roll it down the hall.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
I was going, okay, that
all that stuff where they're in plastic and those weird. It just reminds me of X-Files, big time.
Oh, all of that, yeah. And the little mini trailers set up with steps going up to them and all the technology inside. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. I like the script sequence. I'm just looking at the back of my notes. I like the script sequence and the writing when it's going back and forth between lying to the public and then we're seeing what the truth is. So lying about all the UFOs at the same time that they're actually investigating the UFOs. Right. There's lots of Spielberg key themes all the way through this, but we'll get those in a second.
Before we move on to keys, I don't remember this well, but that special edition that was on television, am I wrong? Was it like an hour longer?
It was padded.
So it was just like tons of it was like the Star Trek movie, just tons of special effects with nothing going on.
Well, and he basically added everything else too. So like your scene that you didn't like with the boring stuff, he added that whole bathroom scene too, which he put in the special edition, which is basically, the kid wakes up at Neary's house, hears crying, goes to the bathroom door, and his dad is in the bathtub with the heat lamp on, trying to get his face more sunburned, and he's crying and everything else and it's all about it's when the wife Ronnie finally realizes she's going to leave him. This is even before he starts ripping everything out, but she's like trying to comfort him and everything else, and then this other son comes in and starts banging the door screaming, "You're a crybaby, you're a crybaby, you're a crybaby." It's a big iconic kind of scene, but it just stretches it on too long.
Oh my God.
And then there's a lot of added special effects. They find a whole ship in the Gobi Desert. They find this other thing in a different part of the world.
Okay.
And just
that's why I guess I didn't like this movie, I guess, the first time I saw it. I like the original version much better.
Yes, I agree. I think it is the better version. Let's see. I like the ambiguous craft design. I like the fact that you couldn't really draw one of these UFOs. They're all just basically collections of light, the way they're filmed and shot. And I like that. I think that's very cool.
I have a little bit of trivia that involves some of the extra footage that I think is kind of interesting.
Yes.
It says that one unused sequence for the 80 special edition version, 1980, involved Roy stopping at a gas station while pursuing the UFO in his truck. But apparently they cut it because a similar scene involving strange occurrences at a gas station was in The Fog by John Carpenter.
Oh, came out that
at
year.
the very beginning of that movie, there is a weird situation at a gas station.
Yeah.
So I think that was kind of cool.
Well, or you can have an entire movie at a gas station with that one with the splinters.
Yeah, like yeah.
And they also, I've got in my notes too, he cut it in the director's cut, and I don't think it's in the special edition either, but the scene where Roy first arrives in Wyoming and the snake sailing guy is selling the birds and all this, the whole crowds, and he meets a National Guardsman, and he tells him, I've got a sister in there, and he goes, what camp is she at? And he goes, I don't know. And he goes, what's your name? And he goes, Smith. And he goes, yeah, we've been told to shoot people named Smith, right? The actor, again, a casting thing, the actor is Apollo Creed. That's Apollo Creed, baby.
Oh, yeah, I saw him. His name is Carl Weathers.
Weathers, yeah.
And I was like, oh, my God, that's Apollo. Yeah, very small part. But
it's a key. You wouldn't get it probably, but you should. But he's in Mandalorian.
I already know that because I saw the first episode.
Oh, you need to watch all of them. They're really good. Even with a Baby Yoda, they get better.
Okay.
Good.
I had planned on it, and I got segued probably by Bly Manor. But I got segued. There was a lot of stuff that came out here recently. So
Yep.
This fall. So
yep. I like I wanted to ask you from a storytelling perspective a couple of questions. One, well, from a podcast perspective, is this the first Spielberg we've done? We've done E.T., right? We did E.T., right? Didn't we?
We did E.T. this year.
But we didn't do a Spielberg.
Have we not done any Spielbergs in the past?
I don't think so.
Insane.
I think this is, again, one of those where this is the first of this season is a multi
You know what? I'm looking at the list, and I don't. I mean, we did Star Wars second season, but I think the E.T. was our first Spielberg, and we're
here we are again.
We're kind of celebrating Spielberg. He's kind of our Christmas theme this season too.
Yeah. Because I think we have something else planned too. So there you go.
Maybe or maybe not.
Wait, remember, Tim, in the promo for this season, we talked about threes and the 3 Spielbergs for Christmas. A Very Spielberg Christmas. Yeah.
Well, it was 3 Spielbergs, but only 2 are for Christmas. So.
Yeah, true.
So you guys are just going to have to wonder about that while we talk about these.
The other question I had for Ju is, as a writer, did you find the last act of this or the climax of this long or boring or anything, or did you actually like the whole last 30 minutes or so? Once they're at Devil's Tower.
I'm having to divorce it from the original, and I kind of liked it this time, but I am quite certain the first time it was too long.
Well, I was curious because I took in my notes. I like the fact that there are multiple. I want to say multiple endings, but that's not it. There's climaxes. There's like 3 sets of climaxes in it. Because they all think once the thing plays the music that they're done. Once it goes and then the little ships fly away, they all start congratulating each other and we're good, and then suddenly the mothership appears and they're like, holy crap! And then suddenly all the people return, and you think, oh, okay, that's it. Then the alien comes out. And you think, oh,
Yeah,
okay,
I guess it
that's
does go on a ways. The one thing that does, there is one thing that bothers me. All right, first of all, I love the aspect of all the World War II guys being returned and none of them having aged. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, and not just them. There's all of the abductees in history.
Well, and that's what I didn't understand. I was like, well, if they kept the World War II people for 40 years or 30 years, then why are they giving that boy back so quick? I was like, that was like, he was just kidnapped the other night.
Well, because, and that's kind of gets to my final thing before keys, I guess, is structurally and storytelling wise, the intent of special edition is totally different at the end than the intent of this, in my opinion. And
Okay.
we'll talk about that in a second. But I think it's because he intentionally leaves the ending of this movie very ambiguous. I mean, there is no denouement. I mean, it's suddenly boom, and Roy's gone, and spaceship flies off, and we're in the credits.
Yeah.
We don't know how it affects the rest of the world.
I kind of like
Do they
that.
tell anybody else? Does anything happen? What happens with, Barry and everything else?
Mm-hmm.
But I think they returned Barry, and Barry's the last one out because he was the last one abducted, because they're done. They want to exchange with us. So that's why we suddenly send out our bunch of guys saying, okay, you return all of our people to us and we'll send these with you. But instead they only take one, which is Roy. In the special edition, it's edited out of sequence. So all of the people, just to remind you, I don't even know if you've seen the special edition. You should watch just the last 20 minutes of the special edition to see how weirdly different it is. But all of the people come back, World War II, and some, you see a little girl who's like in Victorian era clothes and all that.
Okay.
But they all come back, and all their names are up on the board, and they check them off. Then they prep all the people, and the little priest is saying, God bless you, and you guys go in faith.
Yeah.
Mr. Neary, would you come in? I envy you, Mr. Neary. He gets dressed in his jumpsuit. They all come out. Then they all come and gather around Neary and just take Neary up. They have this entire sequence, like you said, of like Star Trek, where they go on the motion picture. Where
he's like inside the
ship.
Yeah.
And he meets all the little aliens, and then this huge cascade of like sparks and everything fall down on him and all this stuff, and he kind of transcends
into a vampire.
Then they cut. No, I mean, you want to a zombie. No, but then
I was just thinking Twilight. I mean, he's sparkling.
No,
why not?
Then they cut to the Rambaldi shot of the real skinny alien who comes out.
Oh, the spider alien. They call him
spider
Granddaddy
alien.
Long Legs, or
and
something.
does the da 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 da, right? Combine that with that other puppet, so you get the distinct impression that they changed Roy Neary into that. That's the special edition. Is that they mutated Roy Neary into this other species?
That's stupid.
I know, but Spielberg did it, so I'm just making.
What
a
is
note
he?
of it
What
for
was
our
he
reference.
on?
I don't know if he wanted it. He wanted it to be less ambiguous. If he wanted it to be more close in, 2001-ish. I don't know, but it doesn't work for me at all. I like this thing because at the end, it is the big existential question, and we used to do it in sci-fi geek talk late at night around the drunken campfires and say, okay, if you were Roy Neary, would you go? Would you go? Or would you? If you had a chance to be taken up right now, would you go? So that'd be a question for you. Would you right now? If an alien appeared on your front lawn right now and said, come with us, would you go?
Probably not.
What? Mad? But I think
That's
it's
like
a really,
the question in the zombie apocalypse. What would you do?
right. I think it is the sci-fi equivalent of that zombie apocalypse. If the apocalypse started right now, what would you do? Would you get to the gun store? Would you try to go to an island? What would you do? Sort of thing. And that was the sci-fi thing of, if aliens really did appear to you, and wanted to take you with them, would you go?
Well, I would have a lot of questions. Like, what do they eat? I don't want to.
You don't get to ask these questions, Tim. It's a profoundly inspiring moment of you going. You don't get to say, "Are you going to probe me?"
And
or
do
anything.
do they have like regular toilets or?
Right.
I mean,
See,
these things are important when you get to be older.
I think that I do think I remember some pushback, in the early 80s when this was in like revival and everything else, of this guy deserting his family.
I know a lot of people had problems with that.
But that is a Spielbergian theme throughout a lot of his movies of the dad that's not there.
But did you see what he
or the dad that's
said?
on a solo quest and the family isn't a part of that quest because they don't believe the fantastical,
Yeah, I read somewhere where Spielberg said if he was making this movie today, it would be totally different because he would not let Roy go.
Maybe.
Yeah, no, because he has now had a family, and he said, I could not leave my family.
Right,
so,
right.
And I thought, well, that's interesting. So you're seeing the film from the perspective of a younger man, obviously, who was willing to do that then, but not now.
Right. I think it does pose a lot of questions at the end, of him going, and he goes without hesitation. He goes, "Yeah, take me. That's why I'm here." Sort of.
Mm-hmm. Well, and his family was kind of on my nerves a little bit. For some reason.
Yeah, I think they do play that up.
They do that intentionally. They make his kids kind of obnoxious and stuff. Yeah.
And the wife being, totally cut off and unsupportive, unsympathetic, that kind of thing, which I thought Terry Garr did very well for her because she's usually so nice and sweet and cute,
Right.
So what about keys? Do you have keys?
Oh, I have a lot of keys.
Well, then you key up there, buddy.
This one I did not know, but I found this fascinating because I'm a huge John Ford fan. Spielberg repeatedly watched The Searchers while he was making this film. The Searchers, for those of you that don't know, is a movie with John Wayne and Natalie Wood and Jeffrey Hunter, who played Captain Pike on the original Star Trek, where Natalie Wood is kidnapped and raised by Native Americans, and John Wayne has to go and rescue her. It's kind of a quest across the landscape of the West to find this little girl that was kidnapped by Indians, American Indians, Native Americans, what have you.
Doesn't he look native? Oh my God.
Well, I know it's a Western, man. There's going to be some problems there.
Don't culturally usurp anything. I don't understand. Wait, there was a John Wayne movie I watched a couple of weeks ago, which was the same kind of thing. And I
get sucked into them.
I didn't catch the title, and I thought you would remember. He's hired by his ex-wife to go rescue their son, who has been taken by a gang. And he has to have the big shootout at the end. I mean, but it's the same damn story.
Oh, I don't know. I don't recognize that one. I mean, he did. John Wayne.
Maureen O'Hara is like his wife. I mean, she was
wait a
always
minute
his
now.
wife,
She only
right?
did 5 movies with him, so I should know this.
She's always his wife. What are you talking about?
No, she only did 5. She was the only woman that ever fit in that guy's club with him and John Ford.
Well,
all the other women did not fare well as
this
Maureen.
one. This one has. She's the one that actually hires him because, and it's got automobiles in it too. I remember that. It's got cars, but they're the old kind of Model T wind-up-y cars because they get all shot up, and he's the only one that took a horse. Ha ha ha! He has an Indian who is his like sidekick. He has a dog.
I don't know this.
And he calls the dog. And he's rescuing essentially his own grandson or grandson.
I mean, she did McClintock with him, but that's not
McClintock's the one where they have the mud fight. No,
right.
It's not that one. This is
and she did The Quiet Man, and that's not even a Western.
No.
No. But she did 3 others, and it must be one that I haven't seen.
Must be. You need to watch it then, because it's the same freaking story of going out and rescuing
No, The
somebody.
Searchers is not. The Searchers is an iconic movie. There's a reason why Spielberg worships that movie.
Yeah, it's a good
And
movie.
I think it's his favorite, or I want to say I read somewhere that it was his favorite. Anyway, he was watching that while he was making this movie. So
Yes.
that's my first key.
Okay.
And then the very beginning of the movie, all the desert stuff reminds me of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wait, they're digging something up. What's going on?
Even down to airplanes in the desert. You know,
Right.
I was going, yeah, there's a huge key there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So you want to go for a minute?
I had when he does encounter the small craft in the first one, with the first key I've got from that is the abyss. The way the lights shine and the way they move and zip reminds me of the submersibles in the abyss and the way Cameron shot them. And I think he did that on purpose. I think Cameron was definitely making an allusion to Close Encounters when he did that. The tracking, when she's looking for Barry in the woods, and she's got the flashlight and the whole tracking shot through the woods, reminds me, of course, of E.T. and all the flashlights in the woods.
Yeah, definitely E.T. I was thinking X-Files, but still.
Well,
Okay.
same thing. Yeah. Any kind of flashlight beam has now been usurped and taken over by X-Files. They will
Right, pretty much, because you had it once
show.
a week for almost 10 years. Yeah.
That should be our title. We should call it the Flashlight Show. You know, whatever. But I had, before I give it back to you, I had one to ask you about, which is, and I don't know if it was an intentional key or not, but it leapt out at me, was when Neary is, because he's just a lineman, but they want him to go repair this outage, this power outage. The area that he goes to investigate is Crystal Lake.
Wow.
And I thought, oh my God, why? If I had not been doing this podcast with Tim, that would not be jumping out at me right now.
I forgot about that. I forgot.
But they say Crystal Lake like 5 times. And
yeah, they do. They do.
Oh my God.
That's hilarious. And this movie actually preceded Friday by 3 years. So
yes, yeah. Okay, your turn.
This one is not one of my own. This one I read, but it was thought to be a reference to the Dawn of Man sequence from 2001 with the mechanical monkey clinking the cymbals. But it's actually homage to the toy being filmed in the movie Rebel Without a Cause. Had no idea. And ironically enough, also stars Natalie Wood, who was in The Searchers.
Okay.
So
that's a
so
good
that
one.
The symbol monkey, I mean, I also relate it to that story by Stephen King. I mean, those little toys are just creepy.
Yes.
Period.
I was going to say that the same thing. Yes, the Stephen King story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then also Richard Dreyfuss, I miss these days. They still do it sometimes. Back when SNL was in its prime, he appeared as Roy Neary in a Conehead skit called Cone Encounters of the Third Kind.
Okay. That's a good one.
That's one to YouTube, folks. I'm sure that's pretty out there.
I've got, of course, M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong Signs. There's a lot of homages in it to this movie, even down to the way they do the assault on the house. The final alien, when you see it, looks very similar to these grays. And Spielberg was actually using actual abductees' descriptions to create the aliens anyway. But Signs, the whole Spielberg thematic of the covert government agency that could be beneficial, but not, but we don't know, yada, yada, yada. Also, as I said in E.T., reminds me of Dean Koontz every time I see it, because that's his staple in almost every book. Is there some black ops government agency that's doing something? And
there's usually a dog. But
yes.
yeah, I know what you mean.
Sometimes an intelligent dog.
Yeah, sometimes.
But that takes me to a huge key for me in this, which is right before the abduction scene, or I think it is the abduction scene, the record player starts and it's playing Chances Are. which is X-Files.
No, it's not, but you're close. Yeah.
Oh, okay. It reminded me of X-Files.
It's because they used
episode.
"It's Wonderful."
It's wonderful, yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, in that home episode,
Oh
which
my
is
gosh,
one of my favorites.
Favorite episodes
Yeah.
of X-Files.
So I thought of that too. As soon as I heard Johnny Mathis, I was like, oh wow, it's not the same song, but it's close.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of music, Maurice White of the band Earth, Wind and Fire cited this movie as inspiration for their hit song Fantasy. I'm an Earth, Wind and Fire fan. I didn't know that Spielberg had inspired them to write that song. That's interesting.
That's good though.
We also mentioned that lots of the abduction scene reminded us, lighting wise and stuff, of War of the Worlds.
Oh my gosh.
But there is a shot where the screws in the floor start, or the vent start unscrewing. Yep. And it is very similar to what we see in War of the Worlds, which would later be remade by who? Steven Spielberg.
Steven Spielberg. I also think there's an homage to it with the spider alien when he first comes down. And he's got those long limbs coming down and everything else, which reminds us of the long fingers and the arm in War of the Worlds.
Right.
That was a key that I got in there.
Yeah, totally.
We talked about Jaws, of course, the Jaws key at the table when the son's watching his dad and his dad's kind of freaking out or obviously obsessed with himself and the camera's kind of shooting toward him. We talked about Watch the Skies, which is the thing. There's another Jaws one too, which is the very and I've got to remember what I meant by this key. I've got the end of the communications sounds like Jaws.
It's the dun dun dun.
The very end of the communication.
The music.
Womp.
Yeah,
that's it. But I think that's a good comment too. Was I listened to this album over and over again because I have it even still on vinyl. And I love that whole symphony, once he goes, and we're taking over this conversation right now. And it's just the way it all, just that cacophony of music and everything is brilliantly orchestrated. And making the tuba be the voice, essentially the voice of the aliens was a really cool idea and something you don't hear a lot anywhere. But yeah, thank you for reminding me of that. That was it. It was that womp, 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 womp.
This I did not know. I stole this from IMDb. But when the detainees are running through the camp toward the tower, the music is supposedly reminiscent of the fire engine scene in Fahrenheit 451, which was directed by Francois Truffaut. Right, yes. Francois Truffaut. I can't say his name. I'm very bad at French. Another big key for me, of course, is When You Wish Upon a Star is in this film, and that is from Walt Disney's Pinocchio.
And if you listen, so the first time we hear it is the little Pinocchio turning doll thing,
right?
The Neary house.
In the house.
But if you listen, when Roy is being taken by the aliens, it's in the orchestration.
Yeah, it is.
And in the special edition, it's the whole credit sequence. They play When You Wish Upon a Star for the credit sequence instead of the bum, 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 all that.
Okay.
Yeah. But kind of cool Disney reference. You notice
Disney reference.
And one I have is in the first initial encounter with the three fast, small UFOs, and also when they're kind of like the scouts. And they also scout, the tower before the mothership arrives. There's a little red one that's always late. And Spielberg has said that that's his homage to Tinkerbell. Is the little red one is always the last one that kind of chases after.
That's awesome.
And he has said that was his little thing for Disney to say that's Tinkerbell. So I thought that was one of my I think that's my last key, but that was one of the
I have a couple others. One of the things is when they're on that Devil's Tower at night and Roy falls and she is helping him. It's very Hitchcockian. It looks like North by Northwest, like when they're climbing on Mount Rushmore.
Good one. Yes.
Because it looks almost fake like a set. You know what I mean?
Which it is.
Yeah.
So it's that forced perspective kind of look to it. Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of Hitchcock there. And then this is another one I copped off IMDb. It says it's the biggest spaceship. The biggest spaceship of the movie is named the Mothership. Ironically, this movie turned into one of sci-fi's biggest hits and the basis of all the next movies about alien contact with human beings, and there being a, quote, mother and straight influence of late movies and TV movies. And these movies include, but are not limited to, The Abyss, Communion, Fatal Sky, Intruders, Fire in the Sky, The Puppet Masters, Visitors of the Night, Species, Independence Day, Mars Attacks, The Arrival, Contact, Target Earth, Arrival 2, Signs, Silent Warnings, Night Skies, The Fourth Kind, Skyline, Super 8, Battle Los Angeles, Battleship, Dark Skies, The Signal, Arrival, Independence Day Resurgence. That's a lot of sci-fi right there.
Well, I'm surprised that I didn't do that, but yeah, it's sci-fi. Independence Day is like the negative Close Encounters. You know, it's the one where the mothership is actually bad, and all the little scout ships are actually bad.
Right.
You know, as opposed to nice. And these guys have a close encounter, but it's negative, not positive.
Right. And honestly, one of the reasons we wouldn't have mentioned all these movies is that most of them probably suck. But what I will do in the show notes is I will pluck the ones out that are significant, like The Abyss and Communion and Independence Day, for sure.
Well, and you just reminded me, later on, this was, you know, just a few years ago, so in the late 2008, 9 maybe, Spielberg produced a series for ABC called The 4400. Which is basically, it's these aliens return everybody who's ever been abducted. So it again has the pilots from Flight 19. It has the people from the Mary Celeste and the Bermuda Triangle. All of them return with no age. So that's a big key. He basically took that section of Close Encounters and said, let's make a series out of it. And they did the same kind of offshoot. ABC did a few years ago with a series called The Manifest, which is about a plane that disappears and returns 5 years later with no time lost to anybody on board. And it's the unexplained, you got to figure it out as part of the
Philadelphia Experiment.
Yeah, sort of thing. Yep.
Yeah.
Same kind of gag.
Well, that's very interesting. And I think that brings me to my last key, which I'm saving for a reason, because we've talked about how much this movie has influenced others, but or was influenced from things like War of the Worlds. But did you know that Spielberg has been cited as he has cited an inspiration for this movie?
No, I don't think so.
The musical Conversation was inspired by The Man from Planet X, where an alien came to Earth from another world and talks through music instead of voice and words. And I found that very interesting. I've never seen that movie. It was in 1951.
I do remember, I've never seen it, but I've read about it, of course. And you just reminded me of something. Lipton, the guy that did Actors Studio.
Yes.
James Lipton?
James Lipton.
He did a Spielberg interview, and he stumped Spielberg at one point because he was talking about Close Encounters, and he said, so I'm sure this had he phrased it very weird that made Spielberg,
he always
not
did.
Weird, but
yeah.
He phrased it in a way, and Spielberg was just suddenly taken aback by it. But he said, I'm sure this was an inspiration to you, but your mother was a music teacher, and your father was into computers. So is that why you did this movie? And Spielberg was like, Oh my God, I didn't even realize that.
Right. Yeah, I think you've told me this story because I've heard this story. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a great interview. That I loved Actor Studio anyway.
It was a great show. Any show that asks you what your favorite curse word is
yes, of course.
Opinion, so.
Well, in that format of always asking those same 5 questions at the end was just a great idea, you know. And James Lipton was awesome. Did he do research.
And I loved it when you would see people on there that didn't normally do interviews.
No, at all.
Like Tommy Lee Jones. I mean, he's awesome on there.
Yes.
Because they asked him what his favorite curse word was, and he said, sons of bitches.
Yeah.
You just did not expect it to be plural. It's just great.
And and the way some people would react, when Lipton would get to that, and you would see some of them go, "Oh no, now here it comes, here it comes," 5 iconic questions. Those are great. Yeah, but
I think that is. I don't have any more keys, and obviously this movie is abundant with them. It is. We have run a little long, but that's okay. It's our Christmas present. The next one may run even longer. And
we shouldn't let it go without just mentioning the special effects, which we really haven't. We've talked a little bit about, but Trumbull's special effects for this are phenomenal.
They are.
The miniature work, the model work. I mean, if you look into research of this movie, Spielberg, even at that time, experimented with some computer graphics, but didn't like any of them. He wanted practical. So like, the whole cloud formation around Devil's Tower and the whole cloud formation before Barry's abducted, all that was done in like a water tank with paint and stuff, and them filming it with different lighting and then putting lighting behind it. So not a lot of computer assisted special effects. These were practical miniatures with lighting in a foggy room so that they would have a haze filter on them.
Well, and I also read about what you were talking about with the clouds, because it looks, now that you mention it, like it's something underwater.
Yeah. And remember, this was done at the same time as Star Wars, so ILM wasn't a thing yet. So he didn't use ILM for this. This was Doug Trumbull and his team. But, there's also the things you always hear about they actually did put a little miniature shark on the mothership. They actually put a little R2-D2,
I heard that.
Little stuff like that. So, because Spielberg said his inspiration for the mothership was an oil derrick, because the way they light up at night, the way oil rigs light up at night, and all the towers and the little lights and all that.
The spires.
So, which is a very, to me, key I hadn't even thought of. That's a very 50s and 60s sci-fi novel cover art sort of concept. Of spaceships with lots of spires. And think of like even Alien, the design of the Nostromo with all those little spires and sticks and things out on it was that's a very old 50s design concept. So cool.
Yeah, and you just lost me, because I'm thinking of like book covers, and there's so much great art on old book covers. Yeah.
Some of the early Heinlein, some of the some of those covers of spaceships look like that.
There's a book out there. I cannot remember the name of it. That is of like 80s paperback horror novels, and it's like The Cover That Would Not Die or something. I can't remember. If I think of it, I'll put it in. I'll put it in the notes, because it's a book I've been looking at. I've been eyeing. It's got like Jill Bowman, who did those Ramsey Campbell novels, like the doll that ate its mother or whatever.
Yeah.
Those kind of, they're very iconic artists that you would recognize if you saw several of their works in a row. You'd be like, I've seen that book. I've seen that book. I've seen that book.
Wow. That would be a cool episode for us to do, is just iconic covers of our favorite story, because you just said it, and I mean, even They Thirst, with just the 2 outlines of the fang and one's dripping blood.
Yeah.
All of Stephen King's novels.
Charles Grant had great covers. The Hour of the Ox Run Dead. Don't let me go down that rabbit hole.
Well, what's his name? Joe Lonsdale, your dude, had some great covers. Lansdale had some great covers.
But a lot of his were small press, because he wasn't very popular to begin with. Now he is, but he wasn't when I was reading his short stories and stuff. No.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right, man.
All right. So I guess before we go, we should tell everybody that we do have one more show coming up before the end of the year and Christmas, and that will be next Monday. Please tell your friends to join us. It's going to be another celebration of a similar sort. If you're not watching us on YouTube, we are there now. You can let people know that as well. Yep. We have bonus content on Patreon and are considering a whole other show worth of bonus content on Patreon. We don't ask a lot for this bonus content. It is mainly so that we can just maintain our expenses as far as website and production. So join us there. Your contributions do help us and show us that you care. Other than that, I guess we're out of here for now, David.
Well, and maybe give the gift of, Johnny as a Christmas gift. Tell your friends to join us and subscribe us and play with us.
Absolutely. Hopefully. Yeah. Spread the word. Spread the gospel of Johnny.
Spread. Join us.
Our cult.
Yeah. Tim, thank you so much.
All right. You too, David.
Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
You can't start the car. Johnny has the keys.